She said it casually. That's the part that stays with you. Not even that she said it, but that she said it casually. Like it cost her nothing. Like you were the kind of man whose feelings were a minor administrative concern, not something worth pausing for. Maybe it was in front of people. Maybe it was in a text so short it felt deliberate. Maybe it wasn't one thing at all, just a pattern. A slow accumulation of moments where she treated your time like a courtesy, your opinion like background noise, your presence like a default she hadn't consciously chosen yet. And you did what most men do. You explained yourself, or you went quiet in a way that made it obvious you were hurt, or you brought it up later and watched her eyes go somewhere else while you were talking. None of it changed anything, because none of it was supposed to. Here's what nobody tells you. The moment you try to make a woman feel the weight of what she did, you've already lost the frame. You've handed her the proof she needed that you could be moved, managed, and minimized, and walked away without knowing you did it. This video is about the other way. The way that doesn't involve speeches, ultimatums, or letting her see how much it got to you. 5 moves, silent, specific, and built on real psychology, that don't just make her regret disrespecting you. They make her understand, in the quietest and most permanent way, exactly what she underestimated. Stay with me, because the first move is the one that seems the most counterintuitive, and it's the one that works fastest. Before we get into the 5 moves, I need to set one thing straight, because if you miss this, none of what follows will land the way it should. This video is not about revenge. It's not about punishing her or engineering her emotions to hurt her back. Men who operate from that place always end up smaller than they started, because everything they do is still a reaction to her. They're still letting her set the terms. They've just switched from chasing approval to chasing pain, and both are forms of the same surrender. What these 5 moves are actually about is something more powerful and more permanent. Becoming the kind of man whose standard becomes the evidence. The man who, without announcing it, without explaining it, and without once asking her to notice, simply rises and lets reality do the talking. That's the frame. Hold on to it. Let's go. Psychological principle, operant extinction. Most men, when they've been disrespected, do one of 2 things. They explode or they over-explain. Both responses have something in common. They confirm that she has access to your emotional interior, that she can reach in, press something, and watch the reaction. The first silent move is the withdrawal of warmth, not coldness, not hostility, not the performative silence of a man who's obviously sulking and waiting to be asked what's wrong. Something far more precise. You simply stop generating the heat. In behavioral psychology, this is called operant extinction. When a behavior that previously produced a reward stops producing it, the behavior itself begins to fade. Most people know this applies to children and lab experiments. Fewer people realize it applies to every human dynamic, including this one. Her disrespect, conscious or not, was a behavior. And up until now, it has been producing a reward, your reaction, your explanation, your visible discomfort. That reaction is the proof that she matters enough to move you, and proof of that kind is intoxicating to hold. When you withdraw the warmth, not dramatically, not as a statement, but as a quiet, settled decision, you remove the reward. The behavior no longer produces anything, and the human brain, which is a pattern recognition machine, notices immediately when a pattern breaks. Here's what this looks like in practice. Marcus had been seeing a woman named Leela for 6 weeks. Smart, magnetic, the kind of woman who filled a room. She had a habit of canceling plans within an hour of them, always with a reason, always framed as if it was slightly inconvenient for her too, never once asking if he'd rearranged his day to be there. The 4th time it happened, Marcus didn't argue, didn't send the long message he'd drafted. He just replied, "No worries," and put his phone in his pocket. Then he called his friend, went to a rooftop bar he'd been meaning to try, and had a genuinely good evening. But here's the thing that actually mattered. When Layla texted the next morning with her usual warmth, Marcus responded, but the temperature was different, not cold, just calibrated. He was friendly but not eager, present but not pursuing. He'd removed 1 degree of heat, and done it so quietly that she couldn't point to it or call it out. She noticed it within 48 hours, not consciously at first, just as a low hum of uncertainty, the feeling that something had shifted without her being told what. She made plans for the following week, and, for the first time, she didn't cancel. She didn't know why she didn't. She just didn't want to test the temperature again. Psychological principle, social comparison theory. There's a specific kind of regret that hits differently from all the others. Not the regret of losing something, the regret of misreading something, of having something of value in front of you and filing it under the wrong category, and then watching everyone else figure out what you missed. The second silent move is elevation without announcement, and I want to be precise about what this means, because most men get it wrong. They post the gym photo, they caption the trip, they make sure the right people see the right things. This is not elevation, this is performance, and performance is legible. She can see the effort behind it, and effort that visible signals that you're still thinking about her opinion, which is the exact thing you're trying to stop doing. Real elevation is different. It's the move you make without her in mind, the promotion you pursue because it matters to you, the skill you build because you've wanted to build it for 2 years, the version of yourself you become when you stop organizing your growth around anyone else's perception of it. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger introduced social comparison theory, the idea that humans derive their sense of value partly by comparing themselves to others. But here's the version nobody talks about. It's not the comparison itself that creates regret, it's the revision. The moment she has to update her mental model of who you are, because the version she discounted no longer matches the version standing in front of her. The concrete scene. After Danielle ended things with Kevin, lightly, carelessly, with the energy of someone putting down a book they'd only half read, Kevin did something she didn't expect. Nothing, not publicly. He didn't post the breakup energy, didn't show up somewhere she'd be to look good in front of her. He enrolled in the evening program he'd been deferring for 3 years. He trained for a half marathon. He took on a project at work that terrified him slightly, which is usually how you know it's the right one. 4 months later, Danielle heard about it from a mutual friend, not from Kevin. Kevin hadn't told anyone in her circle. It just surfaced the way real things do, through someone who'd run into him, who mentioned offhandedly that he seemed different, clearer, like he'd found a frequency he'd been searching for. Danielle went to his LinkedIn that night. She told herself it was casual curiosity. She stayed for 20 minutes. The revision had happened. She had filed him under one category. Reality had placed him in another. And the gap between those 2 categories is where regret lives. But here's the move that I think is the most psychologically sophisticated of the 5, and the one most men never even consider, because it requires something that's genuinely difficult. It's not about what you do, it's about how you remember it, and more specifically, how you make her remember it. And the mechanism behind it goes deeper than most people are willing to go. Stay with me. Psychological principle, memory, reconsolidation. In neuroscience, there's a phenomenon called memory reconsolidation. Every time you recall a memory, you don't replay it like a recording, you reconstruct it. And in that reconstruction, the emotional context of the present moment bleeds into the past. Memories are not fixed. They are rewritten, subtly, each time they're accessed. This means the way she remembers the moment she disrespected you is not set in stone. It is being updated every time she thinks about it, and what updates it is what she now knows about you. When she disrespected you and you absorbed it without consequence, the memory encoded as, "I did that, and it was fine." That's the version she carries. The version that tells her unconscious mind, he's a safe place to put disrespect. But when you rise, quietly, genuinely, without a speech, every time that memory surfaces, it gets reconsolidated against new information. And the new information is, that's who I did that to. The memory doesn't change its facts. It changes its meaning. And the meaning shift is where the regret is born. Here's what triggers the reconsolidation. You don't need to confront her. You don't need to remind her of what she did. You need to become, in reality, someone who makes the past version of her behavior look like a mistake in hindsight. Not because you've told her it was, because the evidence makes it undeniable. Think about a woman who brushed off a man at a party, barely remembered his name, moved through the conversation quickly, spent the night talking to someone who seemed more interesting. 2 years later, she sees his name in a context that changes everything. Maybe it's a byline. Maybe it's a position. Maybe it's just the way a room reacts to him now versus then. The memory of that party comes back. Same facts, different meaning. I walked past that. The regret isn't manufactured. It's the natural result of new context landing on an old moment. You don't engineer this. You become it. And then you let time do the work. Psychological principle, emotional regulation, and paradoxical attraction. This is the move that most people misread as cruelty when they first encounter it. It isn't. It's actually one of the most emotionally mature things a man can do, and it requires more internal discipline than almost anything else on this list. Warm indifference is exactly what it sounds like. You remain warm, genuinely, not performatively, and you are genuinely indifferent to her assessment of you. Not hostile, not withholding, just unhooked. Here's why this is disarming at a level that goes beyond tactics. When you're cold or hostile after being disrespected, she has a category for that. She knows what to do with a man who's visibly hurt or angry. She can navigate it, explain it away, or position herself as the reasonable one. Your reaction hands her the story. But when you are warm, kind even, present when you're there, and simultaneously indifferent to her approval, she has no category for it. Because in her experience, men who are warm are usually invested in the warmth landing well. Men who are indifferent are usually cold about it. The combination of both, at the same time, in the same person, is deeply unusual, and the human brain, encountering something it cannot categorize, becomes preoccupied with it. The scene that shows it. James ran into the woman who had publicly embarrassed him at a dinner party, made a comment about his work in front of 6 people, in a tone that made the table go briefly quiet. He'd said nothing at the time, just smiled, and moved the conversation forward. 3 months later, same social circle, same kind of gathering. She was there. She came over with a slightly overperformed casualness. The energy of someone who's been thinking about whether this will be awkward. James greeted her like you'd greet someone you had genuinely pleasant feelings toward and absolutely no unfinished business with. Asked about her project. Listened. Laughed at something she said. And then, naturally, organically, turned back to the conversation he'd been having before she walked over. Not as a snub, just as a man whose attention moves naturally between things that interest him. She watched him re-engage with the other conversation. She stayed at the edge of it for a moment, then moved away. On the drive home, she brought him up to the friend she'd driven with. She didn't know why. She just kept turning the interaction over, trying to find something to grab onto. Was he mad? He didn't seem mad. Did he remember? He had to remember. But he'd been so normal. The preoccupation she felt wasn't attraction exactly. It was something older and less comfortable. The recognition that she had not landed the way she thought she had. That the version of her that had made that comment at the dinner party looked different, now that she'd seen how he carried himself without it. She didn't sleep well that night. James slept fine. But the 5th move, the one I've saved for last, is the one that doesn't just make her regret what she did. It makes every woman, in every room you enter, aware of what she walked past. Because it's not a move you make toward her, it's a move you make toward yourself. And once you make it, it becomes permanent. Psychological principle, identity-based behavior, and social gravity. Every move up to this point has been situational, responses to a specific person, a specific dynamic, a specific moment of disrespect. This last move transcends all of that. It is not a response. It is a becoming. There's a concept in identity psychology around the difference between goal-based behavior and identity-based behavior. Goal-based behavior says, I want to achieve X. Identity-based behavior says, I am the kind of man who does X. The first is a destination. The second is a direction. And direction, unlike destination, doesn't stop when you arrive somewhere. Men who are disrespected and decide to change in order to make her regret it are still operating from goal-based behavior. She is still the organizing principle. She is still the reason. And because she's the reason, the moment she's out of the picture, so is the momentum. The fifth move is the decision to become undeniable for reasons that have nothing to do with her. To build the body because you want to feel like yourself in a room. To pursue the work because it matters and because you're good at it, and because that combination is rare. To cultivate the friendships that make your life feel textured and real. To develop the internal quiet that means you can sit in any room with any energy directed at you and not need the room to change. When you operate from that place, genuinely, not as a performance, something happens in the social world around you that you don't orchestrate and can't fully explain. People begin to feel your presence before you've said anything important. Women who once glanced past you begin to look again and can't quite say why. And the woman who disrespected you, if she ever encounters the version of you that this move produces, will feel it in a way she cannot rationalize away. Not because you did anything to make her feel it, but because social gravity is real, and it accumulates in men who are building something genuine, and it is felt by everyone around them, even when no one is naming it. Here's the truth beneath all 5 moves, stated plainly. Disrespect finds men who can be afforded cheaply, not because those men are bad or weak, but because they haven't yet become expensive enough to be treated otherwise. And I mean expensive in the deepest sense. Men whose time has weight, whose presence has texture, whose silence says something. Men who carry themselves as if they have somewhere to be and something to build, and a standard they refuse to compromise, not because someone wronged them, but because that is simply who they have decided to be. You cannot fake that, but you can build it, one unglamorous day at a time. One decision, one standard, one quiet refusal to make yourself smaller than you are. And when you do, you won't need to engineer anyone's regret. Reality will do it for you. Returns to the cold open's emotional center. Lands the final truth. Go back to the beginning. She said it casually, like it cost her nothing. Here's what I want to leave you with. She wasn't wrong about the version of you she saw in that moment. She read the room as it was, the version of you that absorbed it, explained it, brought it up later. That version confirmed what she suspected, that she could put weight on you, and you would hold it without complaint. The question isn't whether she was wrong to disrespect you. The question is, who are you becoming, so that the next person who tries that finds a different man standing there. Not an angry man, not a man with a scorecard, not a man who has rehearsed his cool because he's afraid of his own warmth. A man who has built something real in himself, something that has weight and direction, and a standard he doesn't negotiate on, who is warm to the people who deserve it, and genuinely indifferent to the approval of people who don't, and who moves through the world with the specific, quiet confidence of someone who is no longer asking anyone's permission to take up space. That man doesn't chase regret. He doesn't need to. The regret finds him, and when it does, he's already somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere he chose, somewhere she was never the reason for. That's the move. All 5 of them, underneath, are the same move. Become someone it costs something to lose, and then lose no sleep over who didn't realize it in time. Subscribe. Drop a comment below. Which of the 5 moves hit closest to home?